Hello, everybody. Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to respond to Tariq Madoud's paper, which I think is a very valuable and also thought-provoking paper. In 2009, which is almost 10 years ago, I organized with Patrick Lobak a conference, Religious Education in a Plural Secularized Society. And on this conference, we both presented a common paper entitled The between brackets, Desirability of an Inclusive Pluralistic Subject, Religious Education. In this paper, we pleaded for non-confessional religious education in all regular schools, state schools, and also faith schools or private schools. Why did we plead for this kind of religious education? There are several arguments. I only mention some of them here. First, we also already heard it this morning. Religion is part of public life and we should not exclude it to the private sphere. Society is characterized by religious diversity and secularization, and this fact, I think, requires for all of us what we call religious literacy, knowledge about different religious traditions. This morning, some people also spoke about reciprocity, the importance of dialogue, and so on. I think there is no dialogue possible if we don't really know about the other and his or her religion. There should thus be no exemption for this religious literacy. And as, for instance, Elias also argued, it should be part of the state or national curriculum. Furthermore, religious education can foster dialogue and tolerance, especially in the Flemish state schools. It will be an opportunity to have one common RE class and wherein students are not segregated according to their religion. So we speak about integrative religious education in this regard. There are also links with citizenship education, so between religious education and citizenship education. And I think also in Flanders we can draw a link between this kind of non-confessional religious education and education in ethics and philosophy, which according to my view is underrepresented in the Flemish school curriculum. Finally, I also think that a non-confessional RE subject can contribute to the freedom of religion and education in a better way than our current RE system does. Also, at a European level, there is a common plea, there is actually a European plea for non-confessional religious education. For instance, the Council of Europe in 2008 recommended education wherein intercultural competences are developed through promoting communication and dialogue between people from different cultural, religious, and non-religious backgrounds. In addition, we can read in the signpost, which I will recommend to all those who are involved in religious education. So signposts, it's also part of the Council of Europe's research on religious education. And there we can read, for instance, that there is a strong case for including religions and beliefs as an intrinsic element of liberal education, and for regarding education about religions and beliefs as also highly relevant to students' personal development. Finally, we can see that in several European nation states there has been a shift from confessional to non-confessional religious education. This is, for instance, the case in most Scandinavian countries, but also in the UK, as Tariq Madoud mentioned. Also in Luxembourg has there been a shift, in Switzerland and in Slovenia. So we see actually on a European level that this kind of religious education, which is non-confessional, is more and more endorsed. So I was very happy to read Tariq's paper wherein he also defends this kind of non-confessional RE for all. And I quote, "I think moderate secularism should support a compulsory religious education in which children of all faiths and none are taught about the variety of faith traditions and their past and current effects upon individuals and societies, upon the shaping of humanity, taught to classes comprising those of all religions and those of none. This knowledge, acquired in diverse classrooms, is essential for living together in mutual understanding and respect. So I'm very happy to read this kind of quotes. As argued by Madoud, and I completely agree, integrative religious education should be based on a common national curriculum. So the state has a responsibility here. This kind of education is non-confessional, so we're talking about education about and from religion here. It should be organized, as said, in all publicly state-funded schools, state and private. There should be no exemption for this kind of religious education. But, and also here I totally agree, this kind of religious education should not exclude religious instruction or education into religion as optional subjects. Now I come to this religious instruction, which is distinguished from this religious education or education about religion. I think the main aim of religious instruction is nurturing one's own faith or tradition. It is instruction or education in one tradition. It is accordingly mainly organized in a separative way. It is monoconfessional, and it is organized by the religious communities, which means also that the state has a very limited role here. Especially in Belgium, this role is almost nothing. Also here I quote Tariq on religious instruction. Religious instruction should not be a compulsory requirement in public schools, but should be available for any of the 7 recognized religions or worldviews on school premises if a significant number of parents and or pupils request it. Confessional schools should be free to make religious instruction and worship arrangements that they believe reflect the mission of the school, but they must allow exemptions when these are requested, but not from non-confessional religious education. I emphasize this last because I think this is very, very important, especially in the Flemish education context. Tariq Madoud argues mainly from a moderate secular perspective, and I want to add here that we can also argue for non-confessional RE for all and optional religious instruction for those who want from a human rights perspective. According to the first protocol of the second article of the European Convention of Human Rights, everybody has the right to education, and the state shall respect the right of parents to ensure such education and teaching in conformity with their own religious and philosophical convictions. Now the question is this right to education in conformity with one's own religious and philosophical convictions still guaranteed when 70% of all schools are public, state-funded, faith-based schools where Catholic religious instruction, so no religious education, is a compulsory school subject, and where, on the other hand, many students, parents, and teachers do not identify any longer with the school's confession. And I think, Elias also mentioned it, that here we have a distinction and kind of tension between the freedom of education in theory, on the one hand. In theory, we are all free to choose for a non-Catholic school where we do not have to take confessional Catholic education. But in practice, it is, of course, not so evident to choose for another school because I think these state schools are today rather underrepresented. Before I come back to this, I will mention a few responses from stakeholders to the LEF proposal, Life, Use, Ethics, Philosophy, so the non-confessional RE subject we proposed here in Flanders. Since 2009, there is this discussion about LEF, and of course, this discussion has also implications for faith-based schools and for religious instruction in these schools. Two main stakeholders responded to the proposal of LEF. First, the recognized worldviews, they decided to sign what is called the interlevensbeschouwelijke competenties, the interreligious competences, which aim at more cooperation and dialogue between the different recognized worldviews at school. I do, however, have my doubts about these interreligious competences for several reasons. First, there is still no state control over these competences and over religious instruction. Second, these interreligious competences are restricted to a recommended number of 6 teaching hours a year, which is, of course, far insufficient. And in practice, we see that not all teachers endorse these competences. So here there is also a gap, I think, between theory and praxis. Catholic schools, on the other hand, and we've heard that before lunch, responded also to this LEF proposal in their own way. They identify themselves as catalog dialogue schools, schools which take differences seriously, but which still start from the own Catholic identity. I do, however, have my doubts about how seriously differences are taken into consideration when, for instance, headgear is not allowed in most Catholic schools, which means that, of course, the veil, yarmulke, and turban are not allowed in practice. Furthermore, I don't think that different identities are really taken seriously if Roman Catholic religious instruction is still part of the compulsory curriculum and if exemption is not allowed. And this is also related with a discussion we had a few months ago about the requirement for teachers in primary Catholic schools to be baptized because they have to teach religious education, Catholic religious education. Therefore, they need to be baptized, of course, and this leads to unequal job opportunities, and especially some Muslims complained about this. There are also from the stakeholders some important criticisms to the LEF proposals. I mention here 4 of them. First, non-confessional RE is considered to be a secularist kind of RE, so defenders of LEF are, according to its critics, blind for their own ideological premises which are driven by an atheistic worldview. In addition, there is the claim that religious education cannot be neutral. Neutrality is in fact an anti-religious fundamentalism, and it is even a dangerous ideology. Furthermore, there is the claim that non-confessional RE leads to relativism. Only an independent and external approach to religion, democracy, and a plural society is impossible. An independent and external approach to religion, democracy, and plural society is impossible and even pedagogically wrong. Only when other identities are confronted with your own traditions will it be possible to understand your own citizens. I have the question here why this should, for 80% of the schools, the Catholic tradition where we start from. Finally, there is the fact of reductionism. According to its critics, non-confessional RE can be nothing more than a boring enumeration of religions which are approached in a generalizing formal way without taking into account the uniqueness and diversity of the different religious traditions. So LEF would be a very boring subject and with some traits of fanaticism and so on. So it's, according to its criticism, better to leave it out. Conclusion is, according to Tariq Madood, and as said, I totally agree, religious education in our plural and secularized society should, I think, be compulsory in all schools, in all regular schools today. And in addition, there can be state support for religious instruction and also for faith-based schools. But I like to stress here that this kind of support is permitted but not required in a multicultural, secularized society. Tariq Madood argues from his moderate secular perspectives, wherein concepts such as identity, recognition, distinctive ethno-religious needs, equality, inclusion, and national belonging, and also the public good are core concepts. Different from myself, Madoud sees also religion as a public good, and I have another opinion about it. I argue, and so does also Patrick Lobach, from another philosophical perspective, namely an autonomy-based perspective, wherein concepts such as freedom of education and religion, and also other freedoms, equality and autonomy and neutrality are core values. However, these different philosophical frameworks bring us, with regard to education in Flanders, to the same conclusion. And I think that is very important today, especially because opponents of this left subject are often attacking these concepts of neutrality, autonomy, and so on. And I hope that they will have a look also at Tariq's paper and see that the kind of non-confessional RE we are pleading for can also be defended from another perspective. So to conclude, a few questions and remarks. First, Madoud also points at the importance of teacher training. I think that's very important, and I would like to add that in Belgium we have no religious studies. We only have departments of theology and philosophy, and probably that is also needed in the future. Second, I really like your the combination of religious education with ethics and philosophy. As said, I think it's also underrepresented in Flanders. And then I have 4 concrete questions. The first, what about our constitutional Article 24, especially the first paragraph? What about religious instruction? To which extent can the state control religious instruction? What about religious instruction in non-recognized worldviews of religion? As I can see, Madoud restricts this instruction in public schools or in state schools to the recognized religions or worldviews. But I think that if we really take differences seriously, that you should also include the non-recognized worldviews or religions if parents or students ask RE in these religions. And finally, but I think that's a very open question, what about the future of the Flemish educational landscape? So that's it for me. Thank you.